My wife said the affair is purely texting. Should I believe? Hi everyone, welcome back to another Reddit cheating story. Before we start, please hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell so you won't miss another cheating story goes live. My wife had a 2 to 3 month emotional and sexual affair with a close friend of mine. When I initially found clues, she lied profusely to my face while I was having a breakdown for the next month and only ended it and came clean when the evidence was too strong. For what it's worth, the affair was seemingly entirely via text. That doesn't comfort me much, but others might think that's relevant. They met once for a brief walk, and once when it ended to hug and say goodbye. Both times supposedly in public with no kissing or anything. This all checks out and I believe it. It was a year and a half ago and I'm struggling to forgive and move on. She's apologized, and, as far as I know, confessed all. She says she still misses his presence as a friend, but that whatever she felt for him in terms of the affair was part of a fantasy that she and him created for themselves. It was during hard lockdown for you. We've had a difficult relationship prior to this. She said she felt things missing in her life, she was angry at me, needed to be appreciated. This emptiness she was feeling combined with the difficulty of lockdown made her susceptible to this. That's the nutshell of her explanation. The thought of breaking up breaks my heart, not to mention the financial difficulty, impact on our small kids, etc., but I'm finding it impossible to forgive and move on. I'm tormented by what happened. I keep asking her to do more to make up for it, to be there for me when I wake up tormented, to invest more of herself to prove that I can trust her, etc., and she says there's nothing more she can do. She can't continue to be reminded of it and held accountable all the time. My question is, under what circumstances, if any, is this forgivable? In this situation, is there anything your spouse could say or do to help you forgive? Or is it now completely an internal process, something that I have to find within myself? Below is information about my infidelity. In my opinion, my wife did what she did irrespective of below, and the question of whether I should forgive her is separate to below. But in interest of fairness, I should give the full story and own up to my own past. What I did. Prior to my wife's affair, I was going on Tinder for sexting but open to cheating. Went on one IRL date which went nowhere. And my wife did not know about this at the time of her affair. Everyone I speak to says my actions are as bad as my wife's. I know this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but I believe that my actions don't come close to comparing to what my wife did, for the following reasons. I was constantly telling my wife that I feel ignored, rejected, sexually frustrated, unwanted. I was trying to confront and trying to fix it and wanted to fix it. I hinted at my wife that I would want to go on Tinder if in order to get validation, and she waved it away. I felt desperate. I did not know for sure that it would devastate her if I did this. Part of me felt that she would be okay with. Like she didn't love me enough to care. And her reaction to finding out seems to validate this. I was willing, in my mind, to tell her about it if she asked. Conversely, my wife absolutely knew that I would be devastated by the affair, and yet she did it with my close friend. I would never have an affair with a close friend of hers. I would never lie to her for an extended period and continue the affair while she was having an emotional breakdown about it. When I found out about her affair, I voluntarily told her everything about my Tinder escapades. Took her a while after that to open up about her affair, and I always felt that some details are held back by her. The stuff I did on Tinder is stuff I want to do with my wife. But my wife became a different person in her affair. Much more sexually open and expressive than she is with me. She seems uninterested in learning from that and trying to bring it into our relationship. This makes me feel like I'm being kept as a co-parent and financial partner. And I'm tormented that the other guy experienced a side of my wife that is closed off to me. After my wife's affair, I went out of town for a week and went on Tinder and arranged a hookup. I went to her place, it got sexual but clothes stayed on, and I left without sex although she wanted me to stay. There was no further communicating after. When I got back from out of town, my wife asked me if I did anything bad, and I immediately told her everything. This was 2 months after my wife's affair, and frankly I'm not sorry about this. She was doing little to comfort me and help me through immense trauma and grief. When we told our couples therapist that I'm going out of town, the therapist half-jokingly floated the idea of me having a hall pass. My wife didn't say no, and I honestly thought she might be okay with it. But to be honest, I felt entitled anyway after everything. Edit, just want to say I appreciate the direct, candid advice. I don't agree with all of it, I don't like all of it, but I want it nevertheless. I may push back on lots of it, but I invite you to push back further. I want to confront my own blind spots. Here are some best comments from our community. I'm sorry, but it seems like while you expect your wife to do the work, you expect a full pass for the affairs that you did both before and after her affair. Do you not think her affair was a reaction to you going on Tinder and on a date IRL? Then she had an emotional affair, and then you had another. But she's responsible for all of it and you're off the hook. I don't think that's how reconciliation works, and honestly, I do think that your actions far surpassed hers. There were multiple encounters, spanning several periods of your life. I think counseling and some self-awareness is critical here. Towards the last part of my wife's affair, and again when it had ended, she suggested an open relationship and after her affair a guilt-free hall pass. The open relationship was her attempt to assuage her own guilt at conducting her affair, and the hall pass was supposed to have evened up the playing field. I refused both because I don't believe in open relationships, as I know I am a possessive character and I wanted my wife to be mine. While the hall pass was presented as guilt-free, I also refused because I knew I would feel the guilt if I took her up on her offer. After all, two wrongs don't make a right. Later in life we have had mismatched libidos, and as she has been on antidepressants long-term due to her depression, it has mostly been my responsibility to be the initiator. On a few occasions she has told me that if I was so desperate for sex to go and find someone to have sex with. Again, I have never taken her at her word because I knew it would hurt her. As a rational human, I can anticipate the consequences of my actions, and so I decide to show restraint. On the other hand, you have assessed your situation and decided to lie and cheat, and now you want us to accept your wife is at fault. I ask you, do you seriously believe that we would ever condone what you have done? Okay. Let's say I fully accept my fault. What then? That in no way exonerates her, obviously. And she hardly seems concerned with holding me accountable for what I've done, even though I've always been open to confronting it. What is my way forward if I want some kind of healing process, one in which I fully confront my own crimes, but without ignoring what she did, the lying to my face, etc.? I should add, in other subs I posted the same story but only what my wife did. When people read only that side of the story, almost everyone agrees that it's not forgivable. Does the fact that I also cheated change that? Is it supposed to make it easier to forgive her because I also cheated? Am I supposed to be less hurt because I also cheated? I have to ask myself how I can trust and forgive her. She is 100% entitled to ask the same questions for herself about me, and it's up to me to prove to her that she can. I need to account for what I did, and do work on myself, etc. But nothing that I did, even if it's much worse than I'm willing to admit, changes the fact that I'm entitled to look at what she did and judge it on its merit. I'm allowed to consider her lies and her conduct and make a call on whether it's forgivable. So yes, I'm certainly not coming out of this clean. Maybe what I did is completely unforgivable. I'm willing to confront that conversation. But the present reality of my relationship is that I'm considering whether I'm sticking around with someone who did what she did. And she can, and should, consider the same thing about me. And if she does that, I will fight to keep her and to make up for what I did and rebuild trust. But the present dynamic is me hurting and her trying to just move on from everything. The last line is obviously a huge oversimplification. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell for any future cheating stories.